so that if there's any damage to the unit, we can take it away from the deposit. That is also illegal, and they can't ask you to do that. If you do end up paying for that, again, you can go to the landlord-tenant board and ask for that money back. Hey everyone, it's Lawrence Mak here to talk about 10 illegal things that landlords ask for before you apply for a tenancy. Now, in general, in the Toronto market, it's actually very, very competitive with a lot of rentals going on all the time and a lot of competition for each of the different units. Couple that with the fact that in Ontario, it's actually very difficult to evict a bad tenant. And all those things put together gives a lot of reasons for landlords to be very, very wary for the type of tenant that they accept. And because of that, they might slip in the odd thing that are in fact illegal, but in general, they're just trying to protect their investment because, a lot of the owners and the landlords are really just individual people like yourself, and they just like to rent it out to make a little bit extra money. They're not like this massive corporation. So without any further ado, let's talk about 10 different things that landlords ask for that are illegal. Number one is they can ask for the first and last month's rent, but they can't ask for any money in addition to that. So sometimes a landlord might ask you to prepay for 3 months or 6 months ahead of time instead of just the first and last month's rent. And this is illegal. You can't do that. And if you do that, you could actually ask the LTB or the landlord-tenant board to get that money back, because they can't really ask for that. Like a lot of times, maybe you get the sense that, well, if you don't prepay me 6 months, then I'm not going to give you the rent, but you can't do that. Number two, a security deposit or a damage deposit. This is also done in another way. So for example, maybe the landlord will require you to put an extra month's rent in the form of a deposit, so that if there's any damage to the unit, we can take it away from the deposit. That is also illegal, and they can't ask you to do that. If you do end up paying for that, again, you can go to the landlord-tenant board and ask for that money back. Number three, a large key deposit. So they are allowed to ask you for a deposit for the key, but it's supposed to be in the amount that for the replacement of the key. So for example, if it's like a key fob for like a garage and that kind of thing, then you can ask for that, but you can't really ask for something that is like $1,000 for key deposit, but typically somewhere in the $150 to $200 deposit range seems to be okay in terms of, I guess, covering like garage door opener, key fob, access to amenities, that kind of thing if you're in a condo. And at the end of the whole tenancy, you could get that money back. So that's okay, but you can't get like a super large one because it really is supposed to be for the replacement cost of the key. Number four, post-dated checks. Now this is a little bit of a weird one. It's actually illegal for the landlord to request post-dated checks. So if they have that as a requirement, like you have to get post-dated checks or else we're not going to give you the tenancy, they can't do that. But as a matter of convenience, I actually do feel that post-dated checks are okay. So what you do as a renter is that you can voluntarily give the post-dated checks. And honestly, it's a little bit more convenient because of that fact. I don't know if anyone really wants to wait until the first of every single month for the landlord and the tenant to get together and then to exchange money every single month. It just seems kind of weird. But I mean, there are other methods such as direct deposit, which might work as well. But if they do require them, again, it's illegal, but post-dated checks, I think, is one of those things that are okay. Number five, no pet clause. So the no pet clause is kind of interesting. First of all, they're not allowed to have a no pet clause. That's illegal. But you are allowed to have a no pet clause if it either affects the enjoyment of people around you or if it is a bylaw of the condo. So sometimes that no pet clause is enforceable, but oftentimes it isn't. Number six, guests. So this is another one that they seem to creep in there. And usually when you apply for a tenancy, you maybe put 1 or 2 people on the name of the tenancy of your lease. And sometimes they have a requirement where if you have more than the people living there, then they start charging you extra money. And that is strictly legal. They can't really have any, I guess, say in terms of people that are staying over that kind of stuff. I mean, maybe you might make a case if it's a gross lease in that you're including all the utilities, and all of a sudden, so one person, now you're paying, for 50 people who are living there. I don't really know what the actual legality of that is. Maybe you can make a case. But strictly speaking, in terms of the number of guests and the specific people who are there and getting evicted for an extra person that's not supposed to be there is illegal. Number 7, NSF checks, $20. So this particular maximum is actually covered in the new standardized Ontario lease. And what happens is if you do give a post-dated check and it bounces, there oftentimes is a penalty paid for that charged by the landlord as an administrative fee or penalty. And right now it's capped at $20 in terms of Ontario, but sometimes they'll put an additional clause in there that says you actually owe $50 or $75 for every NSF check. But strictly speaking, $20 is the legal limit. Number 8, an interview. I find this one a little bit strange, although there's a lot of pros and cons for this in general. So landlords aren't really allowed to discriminate you in terms of, I guess, your background. And I have had that particular question asked to me whenever I was representing a renter, and sometimes I find it really off-putting. Usually when you're trying to consider a renter, like if you're a landlord considering a renter, you should be considering the financials, for example, how much salary they make, their credit score, that kind of thing, references, to get a feeling if they can pay for the rent. The racial or other type of background of the renter shouldn't have any consideration. And so I'm very wary whenever a landlord asks for an interview, because after they've done the initial screening of all the finances, references, job, all that kind of stuff, in my mind, it just sort of asks a question like, why do you want to meet the renters? And if you did reject them, on what grounds are you rejecting them? So I guess it's not strictly illegal to ask for an interview, but just that whole process to me feels a little bit weird. So just be wary. Number 9, the N11 or automatic termination. So this one is occasionally given by some landlords who only want to rent it out for a 12-month period. So what happens is typically you sign a 12-month lease, and then after the 12 months, it actually reverts to a month-to-month automatically by law. So it's not like you get kicked out of the place after 12 months, but you just continue, so 13th month, 14th month. However, sometimes a landlord might require you to sign an automatic mutual release so that you're all leaving, that the renter is leaving after 12 months. And strictly speaking, that is illegal. So you can't do that. I mean, you can sign after the fact, but they can't require you as a condition of the tenancy to sign that you'll be leaving after exactly 12 months. And lastly, number 10, tenant insurance. Okay, so strictly speaking, again, this one isn't a legal requirement, as in if they ask you for it, it's not like, it's illegal for them to require tenant insurance, but again, this is a very, very, very good idea. What tenant insurance is it covers all the contents of your stuff inside. So for example, if there was fire or theft or flooding, and you had some computers or clothes and that kind of stuff, that would be covered by the insurance, and that's typically other landlords require that as a condition of the tenancy, but strictly speaking, they can't enforce it. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of the 10 different legal things that a landlord asks for. I often do represent both the landlord side and the renter side, so depending on which side that you're on, you probably want me on your side. And if you have any questions about tenancy in general, please give me a call anytime, 416-276-4895. Talk to you soon. Bye.